Information Availability and Urbanization's Effects on Political Polarization by myself, Zain Adamani. So, in order to understand exactly what the problem with this is, we need to understand exactly what information availability and urbanization are. Well, information availability is how easily accessible information is to get. And in modern times, the internet has given rise to a substantial amount of information that is both easily accessible and easily distributed. Now, it's distributed mainly through different types of mediums. And some of these are the news, social media, and research from different types of universities or other scholarly sources. Now, the internet has also allowed for this information that's been coming out to mix with politics, and this is creating an adverse reaction in society. So, urbanization is to take on urban qualities as stated by the Merriam-Webster Dictionary. So this would mean denser and larger populations in even larger cities. And urbanization is clearly on the rise, as proven by Mark R. Montgomery from the stimulus material. So, what is political polarization then? Well, political polarization is the concentration of two opposing extremes in relations to politics. So, this typically affects Republicans and Democrats, though it's not explicitly limited to them, and it can affect just about anyone on the political spectrum. And this would create less dialogue and discussion between both parties, and it would also even create a disregard for the other side's opinion entirely. So this leads to the research question. Are urbanization and the spreading of information online creating a society where political opinions and ideas are becoming more polarized? Well, the proof would say that that's actually true. Pew Research Center reported in 2014 that Republicans had become more conservative by 3%, while Democrats had become more liberal by 7%. And also, Edward Kessler from the stimulus material also reported that social media has the possibility to reinforce mob identity, creating online social groups that would have similar ideas in terms of politics. Now, similarly to Edward Kessler's idea, physical conglomerations of people would also allow for physical groups of people that have similar political ideas. So, according to PNAS, or Proceedings of the National Academy of Science, Democrats and Republicans, when subjected to different opinions online, actually lean more towards the political party they originally sided with. So they became more polarized after that. And from 2000 to 2024, the world's population is supposed to grow by 1.76 billion people, once again, according to Mark R. Montgomery from the STEM material. So all of these previous statistics and all this previous information is contributing to something called political echo chambers. And these are basically information cycles that are feeding political groups, physical or online. It's feeding these groups information that only agrees with their political ideas. So these cycles are actually driven by the amount and availability of information as well as the number of people. The number of people specifically increases the effectiveness of political polarization and the effect that the polarization has on society in general. Now, the amount and availability of information means that more information can go into these cycles, therefore polarizing more people. So these chambers are actively creating political polarization because there's zero dissent to challenge these types of the information that's coming through these cycles, and there's zero validation required for people to believe it. So why exactly then is this political polarization harmful? Well, once again, according to PNAS, polarization can cause people to be more closed off to new and even potentially better ideas. Then also there's a possibility for geographical isolation. So states like California, New York, Massachusetts, Wyoming, and Utah all are very politically polarized and either lean towards one or the other side on the political spectrum. Now, it could also incite domestic terrorism, and this is specifically could be seen in groups like Antifa or the KKK, which would obviously lead to more violence, and this could obviously all lead to political unrest, or civil unrest. And this would hurt the economy as well as many other different facets of society in general. Luckily for this, there are some solutions. Solution one is conflict resolution training for younger children. And this would be done by teaching kids it's okay to have differing opinions through different types of courses and activities. Now, this can also even scale up so that they can include seminars in high school and colleges that are more tuned for older audiences to teach them as well. Now, there are plenty of pros for this. It's a preventative approach as opposed to a curative approach, meaning it's generally going to be cheaper and more effective than its counterpart that's curative. It also means that it would solve more issues than just polarization. So it would do this by specifically allowing children, when they grow up, to be more tolerant of different beliefs and actively decreasing the amount of political polarization that is felt. Children are also more receptive to new ideas, so this solution would be significantly more effective than another solution that would target older audiences. And as the children get older, they would obviously get better at conflict resolution training, or conflict resolution. So solution one also has some cons, and it would require a lot of funding that could potentially be used from somewhere else, so that something would be losing money while this would be gaining money. It also doesn't control what happens outside of the school zone. So when a kid goes home, this program has zero effect on their daily lives out of school. Solution 2 is significantly more straightforward though, and it's just to restrict politics on social media. Now, this would be done by creating community guidelines on online forums and by moderating these communities online. And at a certain point, even it would break up organizations and groups that start to break these guidelines and rules that have been established. So, Solution 2 has some pretty significant pros. It would obviously limit polarization due to the lack of polarizing content online. It's also really cheap, comparatively speaking, to Solution 1. But it also has some glaring cons. Number one is that it restricts the freedom of speech and it's unconstitutional because of this. The second con is that it would be highly opposed because of that fact, and that younger people don't want their types or their social media and platforms to be restricted. So, in conclusion, Solution 1 is more likely to be implemented, and it's significantly better, though it's more expensive just because of its preventative approach. Solution 2 would struggle to gain traction, and it would be unconstitutional, so it would have a very low likelihood of being implemented, despite its lower costs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Zane. What information did you need before you started your research, and how did that information kind of shape what you did?
Well, a lot of the information I needed was statistical information, specifically regarding political polarization, where it's occurring, how it's occurring. That was very difficult to get at first. I also required a lot of information on how exactly urbanization was spreading throughout the United States, because that wasn't super clear in the stimulus material. I had to go out and find that information myself.
Okay. And what advice would you have for other people that wanted to research this same topic?
Specifically, I would tell people that it's not an easy task to go and find all this information. A lot of this information that I tried to get is very difficult, and you have to go through a lot of different scholarly sources. And there's a lot of disinformation out there, specifically about political polarization. So different types of polarized online sources will want to say something that only agrees with their political opinion about political polarization that makes it more in favor for their party. But you need to learn how to sort through that, and you need to learn how to find the good data that's hiding beneath all of that.
Okay, great, thank you.